So if you want to... Actually, you can sit here probably because you...
Yeah. I can go around.
Oh, right, fine. I don't want to... More or less.
Yeah, is that all right? Can you hear it on the thing? Can I drink? No, it's fine.
They're so expert here, they'll just take everything out.
No, great, yeah.
This is why we're not doing it in our office, crowded around a little thing saying, is that a lorry going past or something chinking left, right and centre? We'll roll straight into. So we'll talk with you first, say if that's all right, and then Martin will do a little bit on research, and then Emma will finish off on Birchbox. Okay?
Sounds good.
Hey, we're live. Welcome. RetailCraft podcast number 2. Ian Jindal here in the studio with Jamie, Martin, Sarah and Emma. So just kicking off. So we have our location. Emma, you are?
Emma Herrod, editor of InternetRetailing magazine, as
Wonderful.
I have been for a few years.
12, since the very first issue. So Emma's been running our magazine forever. Sarah, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, pleasure. Tell everyone who you are.
So I'm Sarah Stagg and I'm digital director at the Rug Company.
The Rug Company. We're going to come straight on to you once Martin has told us who he is.
Yes, so Martin Shaw, head of research at RetailX.
Lovely. So Martin is the brains behind the Internet Retailing Top 500, UK, Europe, 250 Australia, blah, blah, blah. So we're going to put him on the spot now that we've let him out of the research dungeon. Jamie, how are you?
Well, very well, but you also told me you were the brains behind the IR 500. So anyway, I'm
that,
glad we
but-
finally met the right person. So I work at Salesforce and I'm there at Industry Strategy and Insights for Salesforce.
Lovely. The
Retail.
brains behind it.
Well,
Hey, look, so straight on, Sarah, the Rug Company. What be the Rug Company, just in case there are any of our several listeners who aren't already customers?
Yep, so the Rug Company is the leading retailer for contemporary luxury rugs. That clues in the name. But it's 20 years old, founded by a husband and wife couple. Its core principles are all around design, quality, craftsmanship and service. Some of the key USPs about the business, one is that it has a lot of designer collaborations with Alexander McQueen, Paul Smith, which are all very beautiful. It's very global, so it's about 50% in the US. We do a lot of B2B business as well as B2C, and we do a lot of custom and bespoke work. It's about 50% of our sales mix.
Right, now I did go and look at your site when you started there, because I thought, everyone needs a rug. I was slightly taken aback that internet retail isn't quite profitable enough to outfit our offices with your rugs. So, I mean, a very high price point.
Yep.
Most people think they get rugs. They're a two-dimensional thing you stick on the floor. So how do you bring these design-led, incredibly expensive, often bespoke things to life via a screen?
It's challenging, and certainly the business is further behind in its digital journey compared to mass market fashion, as you'd expect. Homewares is a smaller proportion, but as everything is, there is a digital transformation underway, and people are more open to it. And we just have to solve those problems and put people more at ease. We know about building out the content to reassure customers about the thickness of the carpet, the look and feel in natural versus artificial light, and really reassuring them about the service, and so they can return it, etc. They can try it at home for free. So there's lots of service things we do to reassure them. More specifically, we know that there are 4 big challenges to overcome. One is that because it's a lot of B2B, it's been very relationship-based. So people have a dedicated salesperson in the store, and they like having that design expertise on hand. So how do we recreate that online? And we've just launched things like live chat, which really help. And I suppose what we can deliver online that the stores can't is that speed of response. And so we're really trying to utilise that. We also know that our customers, because of the high price point, are quite used to negotiating and bargaining in the stores. And so the feeling is they don't get the best price online.
Which is ironically the opposite of what most other people think about online.
Yes, exactly. So we've got the opposite, but it's good because our finance director is thrilled that we're introducing more standardised discounting and pricing, but also that we can have various loyalty schemes and volume based, and we can work through live chat to talk to people about the pricing. So we're working on that. And then the last piece is because we do a lot of custom work. Is how does someone design a bespoke rug? Know that the colour, as you said, the yarn is going to look the same colour blue in their house, especially if they're spending upwards of £5,000. But there's a lot of things we do now with sending out samples and the other content pieces that we talked about around videos and room visualizer software, and we will mock up their room for them. So definitely there are challenges, particularly with the product and the positioning in the market. But I don't think, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I don't think all of them can be met online.
But it's not just online. I mean, the way you describe it, it's similar to many B2B businesses where you're talking about supply chain, showroom, staff, expertise, custom, pricing negotiations. So in a way, it's sort of back office as much as front foot selling and presentation.
Absolutely. Front office in terms of the driving the awareness, and as you'd expect in any retail business, B2C, B2B, but then definitely in terms of the execution is how does online work with a person if it's needed to execute that sale. But you need sophisticated systems to deliver that in a really effective way.
Yeah. And so when you're looking at effectiveness and you're chatting with the board and they say, we love having a chief digital officer, what's the metric that they're looking at you and there are pound signs above your head? What is the thing they're looking at? Is it an individual thing? Is it just sales, or is it general increase in innovation? How are you measured on this sort of wide-ranging role?
I think even I'm relatively new to the business, almost a year. The KPIs have changed quite dramatically in the time I've been there, from predominantly driving brand awareness and driving visits and happy if the sale happens offline, to actually we want to see faster growth online. Can we migrate people there faster? And that would point, to more direct sales conversion. But I still think, if you ask me the best KPIs and the ones that I'm probably more focused on, it would be much more the kind of the customer metrics. And I suppose bringing awareness to that customer insight, which hasn't really existed as a business, to make sure that we're answering the problems and the challenges, and also we're making them happy.
I got to say, if you don't mind me coming on there, I actually watched a video, very unusually for me. I was doing a bit of research for once and trying to be a professional. But anyway, and I saw it was IREX conference, I think, in Birmingham earlier on this year. And you had this, you mentioned this thing, a sort of debate, that big debate in the company. I've got this buy button now and the, contact your showroom business, which sounds like a real philosophical debate within your organisation, both because this is the way we used to do it and this is the way we should be doing it now. How did that resolve itself, or is it still an ongoing discussion?
And this is the big KPI change that's happened since I've been there. So because of the importance of service and supporting the showrooms, we were very much happy to drive volume and traffic in there and let people, particularly interior designers who are more traditional in their working methods, go through their digital evolution organically.
That's a lovely phrase, isn't it?
And yes, said it before. And I suppose now we think that there are ways that we could help speed up that process, and they could become more aware of the benefits, the convenience of online, by perhaps not being as organic with the current behaviours, if that makes sense. It's add to bag and try at home. We're the only website I know that has these two buttons with the same hierarchy on the product page. The try at home button is about to come off. So we are really focusing on driving those direct sales.
Oh, interesting. Now, innovation has always been one of the words I've associated with you, whether it's some product development you're doing at Debenhams or to great acclaim at House of Fraser, where you did a lot of the mobile stuff that we've covered a lot. But reading about the rug company, I was struck by an interview with Christopher Sharp, one of the founders, where he was talking about his pride in building a quote-unquote an innovative company, and he sees rugs not so much as selling rugs, but very much as part of an innovative approach. What does that look like to people who are outside the company? Where are you seeing innovation? So it's very much what you do day to day. Where can we see that? What is innovative about the way the company works, or that you're undertaking the digital developments there?
I think it really manifests itself in the company culture, predominantly seeing how people behave and act rather than the things that they're delivering, because I think everyone can be innovative in any role. It doesn't necessarily have to be a digital one, but some of the things that we really look for and behaviours and competencies that I would particularly look for kind of going through a recruitment process would be things like openness, ability and desire to be totally transparent, ability to question, be inquisitive, use data to answer those questions, flexibility, flexible working, empowerment, some of these types of things that I think if you look at the opposite of them in more traditional organisations, those types of behaviours have been quite conflicting potentially with where expertise and 50 years experience means the most things. And actually, for us, we find you give an intern Google Analytics and they can ask and answer a whole bunch of questions that you didn't even know you had. So I think, yes, for us certainly it would be about kind of culture and behaviours.
That's interesting. I mean, a very positive thing to say in terms of people entering the profession, that you can always be learning, and if you've got the right attitudes and approaches, then that has a big role to play. And let me ask you this is a temptation really, so you don't have to go here, but if you look in the rearview mirror at, let's say, either House of Fraser or Debenhams department stores, which are having a tough time now, but we're big fans of the capabilities they've had, their trading approach, and the place they've had in on the high street. So I'm not being negative, but I think now you're in a smaller, more agile, values-driven luxury business. If you were looking in the rearview mirror at the department stores, what thing would you, if you like, take back if they poached you back to House of Fraser and said, come and work with us again? What are the things you would take from your current business that you've learned that you'd want to embed or try in a department store to make it into a more modern, relevant business?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, predominantly because I've thought about it the other way around in terms of what have I learned there that's provided really good standing, which I can definitely touch on. Probably the biggest difference for me and the joy of the new job is working with such a outstanding product. It has a whole bunch of unique selling points. It's got a very clear market positioning. It's got a very defined user base. It's got some really clear challenges that we talked about that we've got to answer online. So I think predominantly for me, it's those things that have been more difficult to create in a department store environment. And a lot of the unique positioning that we've driven in my past roles has been around the service to try and really create that reason for visiting those businesses. And I'd say that's the beauty of working for a unique brand. Those things are very clear. They're well communicated and everyone in the business is very aware of them and working towards the same goals. So I think it's probably all around that in terms of very defined business strategy and objectives and have everyone mobilised towards the same thing. And that's difficult to create in large organisations. So that's probably it.
I mean, since in the last podcast, we had David Cohn from Heels, and he drew a number of times this distinction between, we're a small business, product leads. And it does seem to be, if you like, a change in the landscape between generic retailers who sell lots of other people's products pretty well, and the people who own and love the products, maybe at a smaller scale, maybe not. So I think, we're seeing a development of a bit of love here for product, more than just the formats of retailing. And so, product, is this something that, if you had to draw a balance between being a retailer and being a product company, where would you put yourself on that sort of false continuum I've just drawn?
I like it. Probably somewhere in the middle, just totally sit on the fence for your question. I think the job of retailing is the challenge, is how do you execute the sale, I suppose, particularly online. And I think it's easier to do when you have a really clear product that stands for something. But I suppose your job as a retailer is to always bring that out in some way.
Yeah.
So probably still more retail, but I like the continuum.
Great. Well, you saved me there from one of the worst questions ever in our short history of
I thought it was
podcasting.
quite good. I was about to answer myself. Let's move on.
Yeah,
obviously.
let's move on. Well, look, Sarah, thanks for that. Just before we take you off the hook, when you leave the studio today, what's exciting you about the return to work? What are you working on at the moment?
We're doing lots of things, both short term to answer some of these challenges, and I think we're moving from our kind of branded driven proposition to our direct sales driven proposition is quite a big change in the mindset and how we execute digitally. So there's some big work going on around that. And then also about what does 5 years look like for interior designers and how they're working, because it's such a transformation and not one that I had experience with, but which is fascinating to me, how people used to traipse around shops with interior designers and now they just have Pinterest boards they share. And so, we're also focused on what does interior design look like in 5 years. There's some really innovative companies coming out which just service clients online, and so I think we're trying to really stay connected to that industry.
Brilliant. I love the fact again that when you follow from expertise to expertise, you see whole new industries changing in front of our eyes. So thanks for that. But you're staying with us, so thanks, Sarah, temporarily. But we've been talking about performance, so let us switch to Martin. Martin, welcome. You've been beavering away to get our 4th Internet Retailing European Top 500 released. So subject to timing, I think it'll just be hitting desks and inboxes as this goes to air. So what have you been up to and what have you found?
Okay, so the Europe Top 500 is a comparative list of metrics, and we benchmark the largest 500 retailers in the single market. What we've found over the years, you mentioned we've been doing it for 4 years, is that there's a continuous level of improvement across the whole industry. We don't actually see much in the way of regression. Sometimes we see websites go a little bit slower on average, but then they've introduced a whole host of new features. So generally, it's a story of who's improving faster. For this year, we have 6 elite companies that we've designated. So we have clusters rather than a defined rank.
It's worth saying why that is. So even though we could rank people absolutely 1, 2, 3, 4 by their turnover, we took a view a couple of years ago to cluster people who are equally excellent but different. So I think one way of looking at it is, if you're a modern heptathlete, you might all be scoring 5,000 or 6,000, but one of you is better at long jump than one of the other sports in the heptathlon, which someone else may remember. So if we look at these as the elite, are you going to share with us who they are this year?
Yes, so we have Apple, Argos, H&M, IKEA, Tesco, and Zara.
Wow, so a combination of Scandinavian companies, single brands, and then sneaking in this year, the 2 new ones for us are Tesco and Argos. So 2... congratulations to them. How come they've managed to elbow out Nike and Boots?
Okay, well, as we mentioned, there are hundreds of different metrics that go into this. So really, it's a combination of performance across the board. That's the only way a company can get into elite. In terms of Argos, its biggest areas of improvement on our metrics came into the areas of customer experience and also mobile and cross-channel. For Tesco, it was merchandising and, again, mobile and cross-channel.
And it's interesting how we're seeing this when they've been so strong in the past operationally. They've very much built themselves as, companies of scale who can get product to a shop and get it then to the customer. So now we're seeing that experience and mobile direct connection, coming more to the fore, which is exciting.
Absolutely. I mean, the Argos thing, out of interest, I mean, is it the connection, the ongoing connection with Sainsbury's and the ability to use that? Is that what's driving it, or is it something else within?
In terms of its improvement in mobile and cross-channel, the fact that it's had a tie-up with Sainsbury's is definitely helping in terms of footprint and availability to the customer. And one of the things we definitely look at is how, from the customer's perspective, how convenient is it for them to do things like collection or like drop-off and things which working with other brands can really be assisted. And not only just other retailers, but also third-party companies.
Because I guess back to your heptathlete analogy, I'm not sure I really want to go there, but anyway, other brands that we mentioned, the Boots has dropped out of your top 6 or whatever number. I mean, I guess they don't have the similar kind of distribution outlets as a business like Argos does. It has the benefit of working with a big partner that's seeing customers daily come in to buy their groceries. So do you think that's maybe what's switched them out? Is that the key feature?
Well, Boots did improve in every area as well. So I don't think they've lost out in a particular area, not in that sense. It's a very, very difficult to maintain a position in the elite, though we do see a certain level of consistency.
So it's a case that they've gotten better year on year. It's just that everyone has got more betterer than them.
Yeah, the rate of getting better is
the rate of betterification has been stronger elsewhere. And I think this is where it's easy to just say, oh yes, so Apple is there again, and so on. They've not only stayed as good as they were, but they've managed to maintain their rate of improvement ahead of the market, which again I think is a real achievement by the 4 who stayed in the elite category.
I mean, a lot of people talk about their product being wonderful, and it is, but obviously a lot of people go to their stores and have a great experience in their stores, and they know pretty much what the product's going to be, so that's not a surprise. What is it also that helps them coming back? And I suspect that's the experience of everything, so they're doing a great job on all fronts.
On all fronts, as retailers, yes. Mentioning retailers, we're seeing a change in the shape of the top 500. So, in order to draw up the 500, we're monitoring around 20,000 companies in total. But of the top 500, we're seeing a move towards marketplaces and brands. So tell us maybe a bit more about the composition of the top 500, Martin.
Sure. So marketplaces are huge across the single market. We find that of the top 500's unique visit share to websites, they actually receive more than 50%. So they really dominate. And there are only 16 of them in the top 500. But
So 16 destinations take up 50% of all of the traffic to the 500 retail fascias. I mean, that's quite significant. And, the big ones, obviously, Amazon, eBay, but also Allegro, which, if you're not a Polish speaker in Poland, you may not have heard of, but yet Allegro as a Polish marketplace features in the top 20 of all the countries we look at. So it's an incredible footprint. It shows, I think, the interconnectedness of commerce on the continent.
Yes.
And what about the brands? How are they taking share?
The consistent story over the past 4 years has been more brands entering the top 500. This year we have 108, up from 97 last year. And they're responsible for about 20% of unique visits again.
So again, if you're a retailer and you think lots of traffic, the pie is growing, even as multi-channel grows, we have 50% going to the marketplaces, 20% going to an increased number of brands. On the marketplaces, and even if you're a department store, the thing driving a lot of your traffic are brand terms, then we're seeing a bit of a pressure from all sides on traditional retailers whose job used to be to bring brands to the public. The marketplaces and the brands themselves seem to be, taking chunks of the pie.
That's definitely true. But the pie is growing, as you mentioned, and the normal retailers, in quote unquote, they are themselves growing online, if not offline.
Interesting. And, we've seen, House of Fraser's recent announcement, post CVA, they're going to focus on some own brand, but slimmed and focused. John Lewis is focusing on own brand. Amazon's bringing out their own brands in clothing. So I think we're going to see this interesting thing, going back to our conversation with Sarah, is that ultimately people want good products delivered well with a good experience of that product and of buying it. So I'm just intrigued to see whether the next year or two products will be the focus.
Well, it's a good point, because I mean, all the existing brands, as it were, they're up now against some new brands. How are they going to have to evolve? Are they going to have to evolve, or are these own brands going to be sort of pitched differently? To focus. I mean, you mentioned Amazon. It's easy then to think about quick and maybe price conscious and all that sort of stuff, and maybe it's just about the excellence, continuing excellence. We're saying about Apple, who are doing a particularly good job ongoing, just focusing on all those things that have kept them where they are. Maybe there's room for all these people, and it's a continual defining of your proposition and ensuring that you're backing that up the whole time. Maybe that's where it goes. We shall see.
One of the things that we'll be picking up on later is we're looking at the dynamics within the metrics. So we look at 6 main performance areas. One of them is operations and logistics. And we saw a very rapid increase in capability, often driven by suppliers as much as the retailers themselves. But that's slowing down in that everyone's becoming pretty excellent. And the battleground now is much more on the consumer experience, mobile, cross channels. So, I think one of the things we need to look at is building in some product metrics so we can assess the quality. There's nodding all around. So answers on a postcard, please, about how we can measure the quantum of product loveliness.
Delivery-wise, are we convinced that we're all at the standard? And that I mean, I think there's quite a big disparity still in the market, and I don't think it's one of the features that you measure, and you may not have exact data to share here now, but I mean, I think that's still an area that is critical, because it's just not equitable. There's too many cases where you go on as a normal shopper and you find it difficult or time consuming or expensive or all of the above to get what you want. And so I still think there's plenty to go there. And you coined it, I think, at NRF in January. ATB wasn't add to basket, it was after the buy, as it were. That is absolutely critical to it still. And I think there's still a load of more to go in that area.
Yeah, I should have got a trademark on that.
You should.
Anything else in the research that we should be looking out for when it lands on our desks?
Well, you mentioned delivery and how that's been changing. We have noticed a significant change in... So the UK historically has been really the leader, and it still is overall. But what we've seen is a lot of the other markets in Western Europe this year have increased the share of retailers offering things like next-day delivery, same-day delivery.
But a lot of that, the retailer can't always do it themselves. They are dependent upon logistics partners. Then once the logistics partner does it for you, and they'll turn it on for all your competitors as well. So we've seen these big step changes. It's a bit like, when the market lights up, boom, everyone has to use it. Whereas the hand-to-hand tends to be a bit more personal, a bit more company by company. But, we're changing that. Now, Martin, before we let you go back into the data mines of internet retailing, we've got the Growth 2000 coming up just to keep you busy. What's that about?
So... beneath the top 500, the next 2,000 largest retailers in the UK are something that we have to date sort of had on our radar. We've been tracking their websites, seeing very basic sort of measures. What we're doing now is we're going to do a full assessment of them. Not every metric in the top 500, but a significant number. And what we're going to find out from that is the sort of sectors they belong to, the sort of products they're selling, how they're selling them, the consumer expectations that they are setting.
And the challenge we've given you and the team is to develop metrics that are growth focused. So not necessarily the same as, we'd assess a Tesco buy, but, how are you growing from X to Y? So stock turn, availability, range, depth, lead indicators like market presence and awareness. So we've given you quite a big list of things to look at there, Martin.
Is there a disruption factor? If are you disrupting a category or a vertical or something?
As saying, maybe change of share. Well, I think this is the time when listeners should reach for their quill pens and postcards and drop us a note. We've got a little bit of time. September, I think we've committed to launch this. So if you've got any great metrics, if you should actually be in the Growth 2000 or want to nominate people, then do drop us a note. Research at Internet Retailing will get to the team. So Martin, thanks so much for joining us, and you'll be joining us regularly as we go along. And do remember, you can see all of the research at internetretailing.net/research, just to be totally obvious about that, if it wasn't already so. Now, let's bring in Emma again. So, Emma, thanks for being with us again. Wanted to look at some of the interviews you've been doing in the magazine. Now, in our next episode, we're talking to the guys from Revolution Beauty. So there was a good time to maybe pick up on an interview you did a little while ago with Birchbox. So what did you learn from them? What struck you?
It's an interesting model. I spoke to Savannah Sachs, who's MD in the UK of Birchbox, and they run a monthly beauty product subscription box where customers are sent X number of sample products each month, and they're personalised to the customer, to their skincare regime, what sort of beauty products they like, what sort of makeup they like to have. But it's more than that. They're selling the full-size products online as well. So obviously, customer likes what they've tried, try it, learn about it online, and then obviously come to the website and buy it. But then they're also working with the suppliers who want to test new product to make sure that those products are getting out to the right customers amongst the Birchbox subscribers. So they're sort of disrupting the beauty market in lots of different ways, in the ways that traditional department stores aren't doing.
But then one of the big attractions of department stores, maybe I haven't fully understood this, but the big beauty areas that people go and they can try a sample or chat to an advisor, be told how beautiful they are, have a makeover. So departments and beauty have had this combination of temple and experience. Be it Birchbox is now opening physical stores. They're not just an online seller. I mean, did Savannah talk at all about their store program?
Not in what the plans are, but they had a pop-up store which opened in London before Christmas. And what's interesting about it is, whereas if you go into one of the large department stores, the beauty products are all ranged by specific brand. Whereas if you're shopping online, most people will sort of navigate by, I'm looking for a lipstick, this sort of colour, and then might go and look by a certain brand. But their store is laid out like that. So all of the shampoos are together, all of X product are together, all Y product together, and they only have the 100 best products that they sell online in the store. So it is curated then to the marketplace, and then there's also way more on the experience side of things as well.
Interesting. So I like that savagery of cutting off.
Well, I think you and I went to a couple of years ago, maybe. We went to, in January again, at the NRF the year before, we went to a Birchbox store. We did zip around there, and I actually thought it was a pretty cool thing because there's actually some stuff that I had myself, and so I was kind of interested to see it. But what is happening in that sector, it feels like, is there's like a sort of almost an arms race with regard to technology and apps and how they're trying to get that experience of exactly what you described, Emma, in the store, makeovers and all that sort of thing, trying to do it in the app. And it does feel to me pretty lifelike. And so, I guess that they've got a great opportunity alongside others to really make that a reality, and then having a physical store there as well to complement it seems sensible to me.
I was struck by the store manager there, though, which I thought was interesting. When we visited and sort of uncloaked and said we were just having a mooch around just to see how the store operated. If you remember, their store manager just talked to us incredibly knowledgeably about the stock turns, the margin, the sales per customer, the interaction with online. And I think, if I remember correctly, she'd been working as an online merchandiser before moving into stores.
That's right.
And so, I think back to, Sarah, your point about, bringing these skills, no longer looking at channel, but the right attitude, the right analytical capabilities, the right customer focus. I thought that was quite a telling swap, even within the US, where they're already pretty customer focused. That blend of digital, store, analysis, service was quite a potent one.
Yeah, I've seen it as well. Jack Wills. I mean, I went into their Guildford store, and I'm probably not their target market, but they had a nice blend of there. People who were extremely commercial, had some technology there to help you find stuff, and not necessarily in the store and all that sort of stuff. And I think it does feel like, definitely as a shopper myself, not as a person working in retail, but does feel like there's that gradual increasing of the bar, and all of us are having to try and keep up with that.
Yeah, I think amping up our staff. Anything else that you drew out of your conversation?
Yeah, but the company's been going for 7 years, so sort of think of them as a disruptor and a startup, but they've actually been sort of going for that length of time. But what struck me, though, is that she said that Birchbox is loyal to its customers, not its business model. And that's probably something that should be a big warning to more traditional, longer-standing retailers, because if these agile companies can come in with second, third, fourth mover advantage, or whatever you want to call it nowadays, and completely change how a product is sold, they can then change how they move again and can be agile to that degree.
Yeah, and so it's not the format. They don't define themselves as we are a retailer, we're a direct consumer. We are just about the consumer, however, whatever that takes.
Yeah, and she said we're a 360-degree retailer that happens to have subscription boxes.
It's extraordinary.
Are they insulating themselves against, maybe the subscription business not sort of carrying on being so popular? I don't know if that's a sort of a way of just, enabling them to be adaptable to whatever the customer is.
Yeah, I'd have thought so. They were at the forefront of subscription boxes. I think it was their idea, wasn't it? And
yes, they certainly did it and got onto our radar first, but luckily we'll be able to chat to the Revolution guys next, who are in the beauty sector, so I'll defer to their analysis there. But it is very interesting, just closing off this whole integrity and authenticity that's coming out. So we heard it with David talking about their product and the heritage of the Heels brand. We've heard it, Sarah, with you, everything from the product quality and the interaction with your B2B and interior design as well as the customer. And I think, yet again, this idea of we stand for something, we're flexible around how we deliver that. I think that's quite an interesting change. So maybe, Martin, an integrity index is one to add to your list. Well, look, while we let Martin ponder that, a quick thank you. Time's coming to an end. Emma, Sarah, Martin, Jamie, I think we're done for this episode. Press the subscribe button if there's such a thing. I don't know. Or hopefully you're getting this on RSS by now. So we'll be back in a little while with our next guest from Revolution Beauty. But again, thanks for lending us your ears for this episode, and we look forward to the next one. Thanks, guys. That was a laugh.
Sarah, I've actually got, sorry if you don't mind, if I just ask you one more question about the customization side of it. So do a lot of people use that? Is that happening in your product? I find it fascinating, because my wife, by the way, when I said I was coming to this, she was like, oh my God, love that business.
So over 50% of our sales are custom.
Wow.
So
That's extraordinary.
to a greater degree, that's just size custom. Like,
right.
I'd actually like a 5.5 meter rather than a 5x8.
Yeah.
So size is the most common, and it should be very easy to transact online, no problem. Color, you can swap any color out, and very key for the interior designers, because they will have color schemes and they want that particular teal to match the Farrow Ball, whatever, light blue. So so we can swap a color out in a rug, no problem.
So in that video, that guy in Kathmandu, which you showed on your RX thing, so he was measuring up, powders to make colours and all that sort of stuff.
The dye master.
You're sending him across saying, right, someone wants Farrow Ball and duck egg or whatever it is, and you're kind of having to, do all that stuff.
We have 6,000 chromatoned, which is a universal POM reference, which is what's wool yarn. Those are industry standard. So there's 6,000 versions of them. So he matches the industry standard. So it isn't, it's not infinite, although I think we could probably devise a new one. But within the 6,000, there'll be a POM that works for your colour scheme.
Which is a bit of a challenge for your screen gamut display, isn't it?
It is, but we send out cards now, and we're shortly going to be able to order them on the website. So colour, size and shape, so round rugs, we're about to do irregular shaped rugs. Those are very popular. Again, that should be relatively easy. And then we do total bespoke. So we do lots of people's works of art. We'll copy it in rug form. I mean, that's a total one-off.
How about World Cup winning captain Harry Kane? Can we get him on a rug or not?
We have. I know of examples where we have done things like that before.
It has to be made from a certain type of Guatemalan yak chin beard, because nothing else would be good enough.
You get that quiff right, otherwise.
Yeah, we wouldn't. We probably would do it, but not promote it.
If it's a one-off, it's a one-off.
Yeah.
Love it.
Hey guys, it's great. Hey, let's go and grab a coffee. That'd be good. Thanks so much.